Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I am your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Bubba Wallace. I meant to talk about this yesterday, but we talked about a lot of things yesterday, and I mentioned it, but I didn't go through the video play-by-play like I wanted to, so we're going to be doing that today. Bubba Wallace, if you can remember, during the last year when they talked about, they believed that they found a noose in the NASCAR garage. Someone from the crew found it, and Bubba Wallace believed that a hate hoax was pushed against him, and so a lot of people stood with him in solidarity, but it turned out that, hey, it was just a rope, like a pull rope that was in the garage and had been there for a long time. So it's amazing to me that NASCAR wouldn't have figured that out, wouldn't have known that. But I don't know, maybe they wanted some kind of publicity, or maybe they were just people outraged and they just wanted to be sure, but they ended up sending FBI agents to see that it wasn't really a thing that had happened. So ESPN is promoting some kind of documentary about Bubba Wallace, and they released a clip of Bubba Wallace during that time and about the people who came with him and in solidarity, and it's pretty amazing that they're bringing this up, especially since the thing with Jussie Smollett just happened as well. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about this bill that was that Marco Rubio has been trying to get passed for a while with the Uyghurs in China, who have been, they're doing slave labor. And so he's been trying to get them to pass a bill that if they have any work done in that province, if any of these big corporations, then they have to prove that they are not making their products with slave labor. So, and I meant to play that video yesterday too, but I had to cut that out because the show was going kind of long. But I thought it was, some people don't like Marco Rubio, but I thought it was a nice accomplishment for him trying to get that passed. And obviously, I think it's a good thing. People trying to stop slave labor around the world. There's a lot of people who are very concerned and passionate about, are very, very passionate about racism in this world. Yet we have people who don't actually care about real slavery and things that go on right now. And people dredge up and say they have, I've heard people say that they have trauma from slavery, even though they didn't experience it, and it's some kind of generational thing. But it's like, there's people who are actually going through like slavery and being put into camps and experiencing some really huge horrors in our world. So it's like, where's your priorities, man? So this is something that Marco Rubio and other people are really interested in trying to stop. And apparently, something came out today that Nike has donated. Quite a few Nike executives were funneling money to a Democrat who was trying to block the bill. And some people are saying it's dramatic to say he was blocking the bill. He just wanted to add an amendment that they knew that Republicans weren't going to just let pass. So, I think that's the same as blocking the bill. And they had to do it in a tactful sort of way, because most people see a bill to stop slave labor and they're like, that's a thing that we should do. Now, not everybody probably wants to do that, especially if they get funding from corporations that will benefit from slave labor. So they have to figure out other ways to block the bill. And so Rubio's been working on it for a while, so we're going to go ahead and talk about that as well. Also, Jim Cramer, he's lost his mind about vaccines. vaccines and mandates. I played one of his videos on here one day when he thinks it's ridiculous that we aren't just mandating that people make it and force them to do it. And so he tweeted some wild stuff the other day. And he's still at it. So I want to talk about that too. There's some people who just, even though right now we have the new Omicron variant that is not as dangerous as the other ones that we've had to deal with, like Delta and so on. We know that COVID is endemic. If people were honest, they'd admit that is not going anywhere. So we need to figure out how we're going to live the rest of our lives. Perhaps government needs to just admit that there's not a way to actually just shut down the virus and it's going to be with us forever. But why should they admit that when there's people like Cramer who say, yeah, we just need to make everyone do it. And he said the government has the right to make you do it. Now, government can make you do a lot of things, but government has the right to make you do stuff. I'm pretty sure we had like a revolutionary war because we thought people couldn't just do things willy-nilly to us, sir. So, and he's doubling down. So we'll talk about that as well. But before we jump into it, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com. Check out different stuff that I have on the website, different articles that I've written. Please check out different videos that I have. Of course, I do the lives every day, but I do have sometimes fun little parodies that I put up, like my Super Bass parody with the Nicki Minaj song Super Bass, but it was super based, and I sang in it. My sister Katrina rapped in it. I bought a red wig. She and I got a blonde wig for her, and it was pretty fun. And we were talking about Nicki Minaj and Joy Reid and how she came out against her. So it was like structured around that event. So it was a fun video. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. I'm getting I had reposted my umbrella video. Not umbrella. I keep saying umbrella. Rihanna had a song called Take a Bow. And so some time ago, I did a music video that was also Take a Bow, but it's about white saviors, the liberal white saviors who believe that they have privilege over Black people. So I reposted it on TikTok, and it got a way bigger response than it did originally. And I never just posted it straight to my Facebook page. I just did the YouTube. So it's on YouTube, but I think I'll repost it on my Facebook as well if you guys haven't seen it. So I have a couple different things that you can check out. You can go to a website and check that out, blacktnews.com. And if you like what I do here, consider supporting blacktnews.com at support blacktnews.com/donate. Check out different merchandise that I have on the site as well. I got different mugs. I got different shirts that you guys can check out, like the "You Are Not That Special," "My Money, My Business," which Facebook they shot down the ad when we tried to put up an ad for it because they said that it can influence people's decisions. And I'm just like, that's what I do, or at least I'm trying to be persuasive, not forcefully, just having conversations. Which, by the way, we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about this the other day, but did you know that Facebook is being sued over some of their fact checking, and Facebook is making the case that when they fact check something, that's just an opinion. So they shouldn't be punished for fact checking or stuff because it's still just an opinion whether there's fact check. So it's like if you're not saying these things are facts, so why are you fact checking them if they're still just opinion? These social media companies are something else. These social media companies are something else. So Facebook's doing that kind of stuff. We know they mess with the feeds and the algorithms and so on. But we talked the other day about how Twitter has made it so that if you spread misinformation about COVID, and they gave an example of saying that vaccinated people can still spread COVID, which is something that's true, that you could be penalized, perhaps even permanently banned. And so they could have thought up lots of examples for reasons that they would ban you for misinformation regarding COVID. And people have said that was crazy, I guess, that you could consider misinformation. But the fact that they pick something that's actually true, I think it's kind of like a wink and just at you, like kind of dramatic irony, like we know that you know a bit. Like the audience is supposed to know what's going on here. because they're just saying it's our way or the highway. I think there's a little bit of that to it, because they don't care about the science. They don't care about the science. So these social media companies are something else. If you're on different platforms, Black Tea is on several different platforms on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. But we're gonna spread it out a little bit more. Get on. Some people told me get on Telegram. Some people told me. Well, I see people really promoting Getter. I was on Parler a little bit. I'm not crazy about Parler, but Parler's lost some steam after everybody decided to just pull out the rug from underneath them. That was corrupt as I don't know what. That was super corrupt. So try to expand on bigger lifeboats, because they really don't like you and me, and they use you for however they can, and then they let it be known that they resent you terribly. Like YouTube creators often complain about YouTube and when they make big changes, and YouTube became the platform that it is off of original content creators. And then they started getting like these big companies to pop on. Tim Pool was talking about how CNN may not get a lot of ratings, but they get a lot of views from YouTube just putting them on the front page when you search things and CNN popping up. They get a lot of subscribers and eyeball views that way. So if they're getting a lot of viewers, they can get a lot of ad dollars too. So they have their ways. They have their ways. But please make sure that you support blacktnews.com and check out the stuff I have on the site. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio. As always, if I say something today that triggers you, I don't care. They don't care. It doesn't work like that. They're not my boss. It doesn't work like that. There's no one to complain to. But I do appreciate them allowing me to use the space, and they do awesome work. So I don't have a meme for today, but I'm telling you, this Bubba Wallace story is meme enough. So let's just jump right into the drama. As I said, last year, Bubba Wallace, they believed that there was a noose that was found in his garage. It was a very big deal. Turned out not to be a thing. There's people who stood by him and walked with him and so on. Like, it showed enormous support. But it, of course, it didn't turn out to be true. They sent a bunch of FBI agents to investigate it, when I don't see why they even needed to do that. I mean, there should have been cameras around. There should have been people with enough common sense to say, hey, that just looks like a door pull. And there should have, like, NASCAR should have been able to figure that out, in my opinion. But they sent the FBI, and they determined that it was not a hate crime, and that had been there for quite some time. But anyway, they're doing a documentary on Bubba, and about some of his highlights of his career, and they did include this. And maybe they just wanted some, I guess it was good publicity, but they got slammed by a lot of people, because obviously it wasn't a thing. So let's watch some of this clip that they had, and just enjoy the cringe together.
I just wanted to stand with him during the national anthem to show my support for him, and was appalled by what I had learned. And then as drivers got involved, I think crew members, team managers, team owners, it really started to snowball within a very short period of time.
Now, I understand this being a dramatic moment, and that must have felt amazing to him, which I remember when this happened, and like the Smollett thing, which was a hoax, which that's what kind of like boggles my mind about this, like that we just had Jussie getting, sentenced. Well, he hasn't been sentenced yet, but he was found guilty of the hate crimes. And you can't say it was just like white people, being mean at him because there was a black juror that's like, his story didn't make any sense. And it never made any sense. But a lot of people supported it. People were mad at people who were doubting the story. I think people forgot that Kim Fox, who was supposed to be investigating it, Michelle Obama reached out to her because Jussie was her friend, and she had to end up like recusing herself. And then they did some investigation, which Jussie did not want to be like forthcoming about. Like he didn't want to give her his phone and stuff like that because he'd been texting the guys who he paid to commit the hate crime to pay them to commit the hate crime. So anyway, he was found guilty for all that stuff. So knowing that just happened, is this like the best time to remind everyone of this situation? It just seems so moronic. It seems so moronic. And all these people who stood with him, it must have still been an incredible moment in the context of that time. But there are people like, oh, America's terrible. This is another thing about Trump's America. Like there was this narrative that's been building and building and building for years. And people pushed that narrative when Jussie was attacked. Ellen Page was like, well, of course, this is what happens when you got our president and our vice president. They don't even get me to get married to the woman who didn't last long anyway. And they went on these big rants like, this is the proof of Trump supporters and Trump's America. And it all ended up being a hoax. So there was all that narrative surrounding this too. And I remember watching Ben Shapiro when all this was going down, and he just kind of reminded people that, well, the great thing about America is that all these people actually did decide to stand by him and support him during this time. They had his back. And so that's the beautiful thing about America, that we actually don't want to keep tolerating racism and to be terrible people all the time. That so many people would reunite with him. Now, I wonder how many people legitimately believed that this was a hate crime. Because some of them had to think like, does that make sense? And some of them might have been like, maybe this should be investigated some more. But I don't know if there's had to be some people who didn't want to be that person questioning and then have everybody be like, how can we support the black guy? But he had a lot of support, people who walked with him. But again, it's not real. It's not a real hate crime.
The most incredible, non-competitive moment in sports I'd ever seen.
That moment, I could feel the weight of that moment, and I think we all did as we were walking.
And I get out of the car.
Again, I don't doubt that had a great weight of the moment, but the thing that puzzles me is that they know in hindsight that this wasn't a thing. And I understand this is like a portion of the documentary that they're doing with him. But I would be embarrassed. They could be proud of how everyone reacted in that moment, but at the same time, I'd be so embarrassed. I'd be so embarrassed to call all this hoopla over a rope that had been there for like months. That wasn't a noose, which a noose you plot, it gets tighter. You obviously can't do that with a door. You like hurt yourself when it's just a pull. And I'm not saying it didn't kind of look like that because it did. If you're unfamiliar with ropes like that, but they were in a garage. Someone would have had to know. NASCAR, in my opinion, should have known. When I heard the story, I was just like, I thought that also sounded fishy, and I thought it should be investigated and stuff too. I don't think it warranted, a bunch of FBI to go down there. But they know, and they know that everyone else knows. So I wouldn't be making this big, huge, dramatic moment. And I understand in the moment, it was big and dramatic to them. But man, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be so embarrassed.
I look back and I was like, holy shit, it's the whole garage. The whole garage. And that's when I lost it.
in the midst of all the turmoil, that was going on in the world, with the black and white, the hatred and everything that was going on, the entire NASCAR family rallied behind my son.
So they did rally behind her son. They showed the support of her son, and they showed like the beauty of America, how we can rally, and people were quick to believe this, I guess, because a lot of white people obviously like NASCAR. A lot of white people are within NASCAR, and a lot of Republicans, I guess, like NASCAR, and a lot of them are racist because they're white, I guess, was the connections and stuff that people were making. But it turns out a lot of people stood by him. A lot of people stood by him. And again, beautiful moment for the family. But she said with all the turmoil and all this, people came together over something that was fake, right? Over something that was fake. So if they had a fake moment, is there perhaps any question that some of the hate and animosity that people believe is in the country in regards to race, maybe some of that isn't quite what you believe it to be? Perhaps. Same thing, going back to the Jussie Smollett thing, and again, Jussie Smollett faked a crime. Bubba just was, and the people surrounding this had an idiotic reaction, and overreacted. Okay, it's not the same, but I think there's important lessons to be drawn. People are so quick to believe it because they have these conclusions about America and the people here in the state of the country and the world. With Jussie Smollett, they believed that two MAGA Trump supporters jumped a black gay guy at 2 a.m. and people are like, this is the kind of climate that Trump built. These Republicans, these racist white people. And on The View, they were talking about this, and Joy and Ana Navarro, they're just like, well, it was plausible. It was plausible at the time. Was it really, though? Was it plausible that Jussie wanted a Subway sandwich at 2 a.m. during a polar vortex and decided to walk out and get it, and that he was attacked by two white Republican MAGA people in Chicago? And they said that's that bleep from Empire or whatever, that they knew, that they recognized this man, because I'm sure MAGA folks are such huge supporters of Empire, watchers of Empire, right? Because if you're that racist and homophobic, you just know who all the actors are, right? So they jumped him, and he fought back. Yet he kept his Subway sandwich because that was worth protecting. And then he's kept the cord on his neck, like the noose or whatever that they said it was, when the whole time. And when the police were like, "Can we see your phone?" he said no. They thought that was plausible. I was telling someone the story, someone from church last night. I was taking him home, and because I was talking about the Bubba thing, and I related back to Jussie, and she didn't know the whole story. So I started talking about it, and she was just like laughing at how ridiculous the story was. And she said, it sounds like he has some kind of mental issues to make that up. I'm like, maybe. It was dumb. He wrote a check out to the guys for this. Couldn't even pay him cash, wrote a check, just made all kinds of mistakes, and then they had a dry run. So this wasn't like a spur of the moment hate crime thing. And he said they poured bleach on him. So there's just a lot of things that were fishy about it. But these ladies from The View said it was plausible. Now, how could a story like that be plausible? Because they have such a warped view of the world. So they don't need to apologize for being utterly wrong, for defending the hoax, for pushing the hoax, for believing the hoax. They don't need to apologize because that's their worldview. That's the lens in which they see the world. And feeling this sort of way and trying to convince other people that the world is this way is part of the plan. It's part of the goal. Like when people talk about critical race theory, and if you read like some of the stuff they have, actual writings of it, critical race theorists are avowedly political. That's in the writings. I know there's some hacks out there who want to say it's about teaching honest history, but it's not about being subjective. Objective. They are subjective and political. So if these people don't even care about honest present, how the heck do they care about honest history? Just questions to ask. So I can believe it's unbelievable in a way. It's unbelievable in a way that ESPN would relive this moment like this. But at the same time, why not? Why not? Because you don't, what does it matter what the facts are if it feels like it's correct? Again, I'm sure it was a beautiful moment for all the people involved at the time. But again, I'd be embarrassed to talk about this. I'd be so embarrassed. When I was a kid, I got in trouble. I ended up getting everybody in trouble. It was one of those situations like, if you don't confess, everybody's getting in trouble. I was the one who did it. I was the one who did it. And everybody got in trouble. Everybody got punished. And things just went in too deep. And I felt like there wasn't a way out. And my sister kind of just started praying, and she said the Lord revealed it was her. It was me. And when she confronted me, I cried. And she didn't think it was something that I would have done. And it wasn't like something super like crazy. My dad wanted to return something, and I had cut up a box. And when he found, and it didn't, and the reason why I wanted to cut up the box, it was for like an arts and crafts kind of project, but it didn't go the way I wanted. So I just kind of put it back where I found it. And when my dad saw it, I was there when he discovered it. And he was like, who did this? And it was like monstrous. And I was like, I don't know. And then it just went too deep. And so, and when I ended up confessing, my dad was just like, it's okay. It was okay. And she was a little mad that I didn't get more punished than that. But when they bring it up today, and like periodically through the years, she'd just be like, that darn box. Like, eventually I confessed to her, I'm like, I don't like when you bring that up, you know? Like, I know I'm the one who like caused this great punishment, and it was unjust to everyone else and stuff. And, but you know, I was a kid, I made a mistake, and I'm really embarrassed by it. So I hate when people bring it up. And so once I said that to her, she stopped bringing it up. So I just couldn't imagine being the spearhead for all of this, and then still making this video and having it be so this dramatic. I would be embarrassed. I would be utterly embarrassed if I were him. But not everyone, I don't know, can be embarrassed, I guess.
I knew at that moment they loved him for the person that he is, not because of skin color or anything like that.
And you know what? People should care about you just beyond skin color, but there's a lot of people who talk about racism, hate racism, but they don't want the world to be thinking outside of color. Color blindness is a bad thing, and like CRT and other stuff like that. A lot of activists who push stuff, they don't want you to not see people's color and to love people beyond that, you know? They believe it's supposed to play so much into our worldview because they believe it already does. And they're not, they don't believe we can just like choose to right now, except that like race is a construct and just treat each other like normal human beings. They think we have to tear down entire systems. Just interjecting right there.
What did it mean when all those people who were so silent on that chat 2 weeks earlier?
Oh, I still don't forget, but this moment was still important. you know, you can let down your guard a little bit, but I don't forget the ones that were silent.
So that's what really gets me right there when he says, I don't forget the ones who were silent. What's the point of holding a grudge over something that wasn't real? You're gonna hold a grudge over something that wasn't real? Everyone says all feelings are valid. Are they? I can acknowledge you have feelings. That doesn't mean they're valid. Because what if they're based off of a lie? For example, I had a friend from high school, and I was at a party. Wasn't that kind of party. We just basically hanging out at a friend's house. And they just got a boyfriend. And some of my other friends were talking about, I don't know, their relationship a little bit. I didn't know the guy that well. And I just was kind of there while they were talking. I wasn't even part of the conversation. But my friend saw me, and then she was upset with like all of us, but she's particularly upset with me. And she's like, I can't believe that she would do this. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I wasn't even like part of that conversation. And then she's like, well, that still doesn't erase the feelings that I had in the moment. And I'm like, I can't go back in time and change that, but isn't like, aren't the facts like relevant at all? And I try to break that down in the smoothest sort of way possible, but it's just like, I can't, no one can change how you felt in the past, and we can't change how they felt in the past. We can't change the reaction that they had, but going forward, we have the knowledge that this wasn't a real incident, that it wasn't, no one was racist. No one left the noose there to scare the crap out of him. And there were times when Bubba was like, oh God, you know, like, man, oof, you know, he kind of tried to back off, but then there were times it seemed like he went on down limb and doubled down a little bit. So, I don't know what all the documentary had in store. I mean, they talked about other moments in his life and his career and winning and whatnot, his relationship with his dad and so on. So it's not all about this. But this clip that they put out was just amazing. So I assume that they went on to say that the FBI, I hope they went on to say that the FBI deemed there was no hate crime. Because we're going to do a documentary, I would assume there's some honesty in it, but if I were him, I'd be like, I don't want to play that up too much, bruh. I wouldn't even want it to be 3 minutes long. And to say, I won't forget. I won't forget the ones who were silent. Maybe they were silent because they didn't think it made any sense. I don't know what all happened in the chat. I don't know what all happened between him and other people, but I can say when the whole garage went out there and walked, I'd have been like, I want to find out some more information. I think there would have been a lot of people not liking me, but to me, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense when I heard about it, and I was not surprised when it turned out that it wasn't a noose and had been there for some time. So, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Man, this is such a bizarre story to me. Such a bizarre story. I say bizarre because it's just strange in general, but it's really on brand for the time that we're living in. ESPN is extraordinarily left wing, and they've injected so much politics in their commentary. When people just really want to watch sports and people want to hear you talk about sports and feats and accomplishments and other things like that, and they've really I mean, I'm not one for sports anyway, so it wasn't my network of choice. But I know a lot of people who've been pretty upset. Someone asked, didn't this happen after Smollett? Yes, Smollett's thing happened like 3 years ago. It just now went to like trial. This happened last year, and I think it was like about a year anniversary from when it happened. So I think that's also relevant why they did it too, just to remind people ish. But I wouldn't have made this or put that clip out after the Smollett case just came to a conclusion. I wouldn't have done that if I was ESPN. But maybe the goal was to get right-wing commentators and other people talking about this moment to hype up the video so other people will go and watch it and so on. I understand that some of these people they believe that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I don't think that's always true, but some people bank on it. For example, Seth Rogen, they had he came out with a terrible like Christmas special with Sarah Silverman, and the movie is on, I think it's on Netflix, and it's about a Jewish little feminist elf who wants to be the next Santa Claus, and she has a friend who wants to be the first female reindeer to lead the sleigh, and it's just got a lot of sort of forced left-wing isms in it, and it's something it's about Christmas, but it's no love for Christmas. So anyway, a lot of people hated it. So what did they say? Oh, it's we upset the right wingers, we upset the white supremacists. It's like, are people upset because they're white supremacists, or are they upset because your stuff sucks? Now, did they expect such a negative reaction that they got? Probably not, but I think that it plays into a little bit, and they're probably just waiting to blame any sort of criticism on white supremacy, because that is what they do. That is what they do. Someone asked, where do I stream from? I am in Michigan. And thank you to the people who are tuning in. Some people are watching live for the first time, so thank you for watching. Let's move on to the Uyghur camps. So Marco Rubio has been working on this bill for a while, and so he released his video, but I guess they did end up having hiccups. But I'll play the video, and then I'll talk about Nike donating money and the Democrats trying to stop this bill for a little bit.
For 2 years now, American companies, big companies, have been lobbying against my bill to crack down on the use of slave labor in China. And we as a country have become so reliant on China that we've turned a blind eye to the slave labor that makes our shoes, our solar panels, and much more. But that changed today. After months of working on this and negotiation and having to play a little hardball, my Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act is going to become law. It's a common sense bill that says if you make things in Xinjiang, then you need to prove that there is no slave labor involved in making it before you can bring that stuff into the United States. In other words, the proof is now on the businesses. The burden's on them to show that they are not operating using these work camps. And if you can't prove it, then your product doesn't enter the United States. It's that simple. So I hope and urge President Biden to sign the bill into law immediately. It's time to end our economic addiction to China, and that starts by cracking down on slave labor.
So that's something that he's been working on, but Nike executives, Daily Caller is reporting, Nike executives funneled money to Democrat who just blocked Uyghur forced labor bill. Several top Nike executives. Those are the headlines. Let me just go into the main article. Wednesday evening, Wyden blocked a Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which the House passed unanimously Tuesday, and the Senate was expected to overwhelmingly approve. President Joe Biden vowed to sign the bill once passed by both chambers and work with Congress to ensure global supply chains are free of forced labor, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said in a statement. Nike, a major benefactor of Wyden, was one of the several corporations to lobby against the bill, the New York Times previously reported. A March 2020 report from the Bipartisan Congressional Executive Commission on China concluded that the Oregon-based athletic apparel giant was one of the several corporations suspected to either directly employ forced labor or source materials from suppliers using forced labor in Xinjiang. I don't know how to say that. It's the region. Between September 15th to the 30th, 10 Nike executives, including CEO John Donahoe and executive chairman Mark Parker, each made 2,900 contributions to Wyden. According to federal elections campaign data, Scott Uzzell, the CEO of Nike subsidiary Converse, made a single contribution of $2,900. Altogether, executives gave $60,900 to Wyden's campaign in the span of about 2 weeks. Wyden is running for re-election in November 2022. So that's something. That's something. So there are caps on like how much you can give to people, FYI. So they had to like spread it out. Otherwise, people form PACs so people can get money, but you're not supposed to really be having direct contact with candidates and stuff. So there's ways people find a way to kind of give around giving, but they found a way to get for Nike people to give $60,000 to one person to stop this bill within like 16 days. So people on the left are trying to push back and say he didn't stop the bill. He was just trying to add an amendment.
In 2021, the American Investment Council shined a...
So the amendment that he was trying to add, I don't know if that played through the speakers or not. There's a little ad. The amendment he was trying to add was a child tax credit that's supposed to be running up in January. And people are saying, well, he just wanted that in and forced child labor and helping to pay for children. They correlate, right? Now, one thing people really, really hate about Congress is when they pass bills and they don't pass clean bills, because so many people want to lobby through crap to get something good done. And they'll say, well, you could obviously pass clean bills if you wanted to, but if you just pass clean bills, people wouldn't be able to get their stuff done. And I think it's a really big disservice to American people that we don't have clean bills and people forcing their projects one way or another. But I don't know how many people would actually stand up to try to stop all that stuff from getting through. So he wanted to attach the child tax credit to it, extension. And they're like, I'm just out here trying to do a nice thing. But the Republicans find that extension controversial. So he knew that adding things to this bill that Marco Rubio thought was so clean, they got it through the House, and everyone thought this was going to pass with all the support. And he's like, let's add something that's controversial. That was meant to hold up the bill. It was absolutely meant to hold up the bill. So just some dirty, dirty, dirty foul stuff from him, from Nike. But at least in people see it for what it is to some degree. This Wyden is a really kind of creepy guy to me, and corrupt and insincere. But child labor is obviously bad, and shame on them, shame on Nike. If you want to do business in that region, they're saying that you have to prove that you're not using slave labor. But I think it's no secret to a lot of people that Nike does benefit off of that stuff. So I don't know how much stuff you bought this Christmas from some of these people who lobbied against this bill, but FYI, maybe you should try to look into supporting some other companies. So I do also want to talk about Jim Cramer. So Jim Cramer, he's been on CNBC for a while. He's a guy who really yells a lot. I'm sure if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'd recognize what I'm talking about. He's been really, really, really on this pro-vaccination, pro-mandate phase. Very, 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 very much pushing it. And I played a video one time for you guys with him saying they should basically force people and they can't believe in America that they're just not making people do it. Well, he's going crazy still, and he's doubling down on a lot of this stuff. Now, he said that Omicron is about to the real deal pandemic when it comes to getting it, but not when it comes to killing you. He said the other day that the government has a right to force you to obey and has always exercised it, especially under the GOP. Especially under the GOP. So this is a pretty fascist sort of opinion, I think. Government doesn't have the right to force you to obey. No, kind of had a revolutionary war because we didn't like living under a tyrannical government, a tyrannical king. We had our Declaration of Independence, and we stated our grievances of why we were leaving, and we actually believed that the consent of the governed is very important, and the role of the government is actually to ensure the rights of the governed. That's actually how it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to have representation and whatnot. So we do not just live in a system where people get to just come in your house and make you inject things into your body. Like, at least that's not how it's supposed to be. And if it is, it shouldn't be. And why would anyone want that? Why would anyone want that? Especially not someone who's going to benefit from it. It's just pure psychotic energy with Mr. Cramer. So I don't know what makes him think that the government has a right to do that. Our rights are God-given, and that doesn't, and even if you're not religious, that just means that those are things that you are endowed with, born with, that you carry with you into this world, right? So I'm not saying that the government doesn't make people do things from time to time, but to say the government has a right to just force you to obey, that's not how our government was structured. That's not how the intention of our government is supposed to be. And he's doubling down because he just believes that this is the right path, because he believes that this is moral, and I don't understand why. He's saying that people who are anti-mandates would basically be pro. He says he's pro-health, he's pro-science, and people like me would be pro-polio. Now, I've said this a lot. If polio was hurting kids in the way that COVID was hurting people in the way that polio did, I think people would have a different opinion on it. But most people know that kids are all right with COVID. Now, I know Fauci got on the air and he tried to freak people out the other day. He really tried to freak people out the other day. It was like, oh, can still get your kids. There's been millions of cases and well over 100 deaths. Like, millions of cases, but well over 100, like 100 deaths. It sounds like you're saying those odds are still really low. And there's cases, this was cases of people who you found, because not everyone gets tested. There's a lot of people out there who are asymptomatic. So what you're saying is it's unlikely that your kids will be hurt by COVID. Because that's what the data is. That's what the data shows. But there's people who are still deathly afraid, people who have said that they're going to put their kids in clinical trials so they could stick them. People lying about their kids' age so they could get them vaccinated. All kinds of crazy stuff. All kinds of crazy hysteria. And I don't know what happened to Mr. Cramer that he has gone pure tyrannical with this. And there's other people who've gone pure tyrannical with this, but his rhetoric is off the wall. Totally off the wall. And he thinks he's justified. And there's other people who think they're justified as well. Just cruising through his tweets real quick. But I don't know. I'm not pro polio. I assume you're not pro polio, and I'm not anti-vax either. But I guess they changed the definition some time ago. So if you are anti-mandate, you are an anti-vaxxer. That's in the definition now. So if you don't believe that people should be forced to take something, then you're technically an anti-vaxxer. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? But to think that people should still be forcing this stuff, there's people still advocating that we need to have federal mandates for people getting on planes, even though airplanes have never been a super spreader. Biden, stopping or he was cutting off travel in certain regions and saying if you get on a plane, you have to have a COVID test within like 24 hours. Did you guys see the clip of Jen Psaki? Someone asked, like, why don't you guys just send make rapid tests free and send it to everybody. And then John Psaki started laughing, and she's just like, just send it to everybody. And it's like, didn't you guys send ballots to everybody? And Jen Psaki's like, okay, so what happens after we send it to everybody? Do you know how much that'll cost? How much does Build Back Better cost? How much did the American Rescue Plan cost? How much are you spending to give money to pay out legal fees and settlements to illegal aliens who cross the border? How much money are you blowing because you have bad policies at the border, facilitating all these people? Because we know the government is not efficient. They're blowing money all the time. How much money did it spend to give all those books to the children at the border with Kamala Harris's book that she made? Did she do that all out of pocket? I don't know if she did, but I'm sure there was some money involved somewhere. I'm sure there was some money involved somewhere. So when it comes to rapid testing, that's where they draw the line at giving stuff for free to people. People didn't have to pay for the vaccine. They sent all that. They paid them buku money. They're gonna make you take it still, even though it's not as effective as it was when they first made it. But they're gonna make sure you take all those shots before they make up a new one. Does that make any sense to you guys? They sent out ballots to people or applications to everybody. They gave money to people for COVID. They had nothing to do for COVID. They let businesses apply for PPP loans that didn't really need it. I knew of a company that got some money, and man, they really did not need it. But they paid their employees really, really good. But I say really didn't need it. They really didn't need it. But they gave it. They gave the money to different people. They passed out COVID checks to everybody. Not everybody. There's people who use it, appreciate it. A lot of people. There's people who went out, and I know people got plastic surgery with their COVID checks. There are people who spent it on Nike shoes. People went to Converse. People went to Nike stores. Spent all that stuff up. There's people who used it for their bills. I was in the store last year, or maybe it was earlier this year, after they gave out the COVID relief. And so a mom was talking about how her kid got, they gave it to everybody, and she had it for her kids. So she went ahead and she just gave all the money, like the $2,000, maybe it was 16 or 1,200, maybe it was 1,200 at the time. And she's like, I just gave it to him. And I said, what do you want? And he said he wanted some kind of dirt bike or something. And so she went ahead and got it because she's figured that the money's for him. It's his money. And she didn't need it for her bills. So it was technically her kid's money because they sent it for the kid. She didn't put that in savings. She said, let's go get him a dirt bike. So they sent out a lot of money, and how they dispersed it didn't always make sense either. But they did it. But they think it's laughable to make rapid tests free? Does that make sense to you guys? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense that we live in a world where people want to make you do all these mandates and masks, but like you have Newsom who had all these mandates, but then went out to the French Laundry. You had Lori Lightfoot who was like, you can't go cut your hair, and then you can't go to these places. And then she got her hair cut and said, well, I'm a person of interest or whatever, so I had to get a haircut. It doesn't make sense to me that you had other politicians who would travel when they said not to travel, that people would force these mandates and stuff and these masks, and you see Obama partying at his birthday maskless, hanging out with friends and whatnot. I mean, it does make sense that they don't actually care about you and they don't care what you think, because there's enough people that will let them get away with it. Yesterday we talked about Charlemagne talking about Biden going back on canceling student loan debt. And he's like, politicians, if he said Jussie Smollett was held accountable for his hate crime hoax, how come politicians aren't held accountable for not keeping their campaign promises when they openly lie to people? My response was, Joe Biden didn't bamboozle nobody. Y'all should have known there was plenty of evidence to know that he was a prolific liar. Period. With a T at the end. Period. Okay? But people chose him anyway, regardless. Do you remember when he was accused of sexual assault by Tara Reid? And there's plenty of people who didn't find her credible, but there was more evidence to support her story than like Kavanaugh, for example, right? And so she claimed that she made some kind of report and it would have been in the Biden library or something. And so he was on Morning Joe and Mika was interviewing him because why wouldn't the woman do it in that kind of situation? And so she's like, well, this stuff was supposed to be unsealed. But since you're going back into like, not public office and you're not going to be a private citizen, you're going back into office, that stuff is being resealed or whatever. So why won't you just unseal it? And Joe Biden said on national TV that there's speeches and a bunch of other stuff that would be there that would be cannon fodder in an election. So why would I do that? Now, kudos for the honesty there. A little dumb to admit, I guess, except you can say all kinds of crazy stuff like that because he knows he can get away with it. And people are just kind of like, boop, right over their heads. I didn't even hear a lot of people talk about that. I was the only one who was like, did you guys hear just what he said? He said he won't show you things because he knows that you will criticize it. So the next question should have been, what specific things are you talking about, Joe? It sounds like we really should unseal those things because there's other issues we need to know about, other things we need to talk about. But those things were sealed. We saw what happened with Hunter Biden and his story. They just tried to kill that. They tried to kill that, and they didn't even deny it. But the media still was like, this is a misinformation. This isn't real. It's like, what do you mean? There's people confirming the emails. Like there was one with Frank Lutz and he was trying to explain the context. I'm like, oh, so this is a real email, huh? So this laptop seems legit, right? But we know how the media is. And I understand there's a lot of people who were bamboozled. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, I wasn't the fool. I didn't vote for Biden. If you did, God help you. I hope you learned your lesson. But I don't think it's fair to blame him. You should have knew better. Should have known better. Anyway, that is the show for today. Thank you guys for joining me live today. And those who are watching on the playback, make sure that you guys visit blacktnews.com. Check out different stuff that I have on the website, different merchandise. I do have different shirts you guys can check out, like my Money, My Business shirt. The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document, and got mugs and whatnot. I also do write books for children, young adults, new adult. So some of you have picked up Super Kid and said that your kids really liked it. I appreciate that. So if anyone is interested, you guys can all check this stuff out at blacktnews.com. And there is a link in the merchandise for some of my books if you want to check that out, for something for you, for something for your family, for your kids, whatever. And please make sure that you guys share different articles and you check out different videos and follow me across different platforms and hit the notification bells, because social media put another wall between the fans and the people they're subscribed to. And it's not enough to be subscribed. In some cases, you have to actually hit the notification bell. So make sure that you're doing that on YouTube and so on. So you know when I go live and we can spend more time, quality time together. And if you want to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. Thank you guys so much. And we will have more tea for tomorrow.